It has been a very long time since we did the last episode of the $100 flip up challenge. And we've had some hurdles, that's for sure. When we started this, at the start of the series, we then got hit with a massive lockdown. After that, we then had a quick taste of success where we went from episode 2 to episode 3 really quickly. And then episode 4, this is today's episode. The reason it's taken so long to do this episode is because I had 3 PCs that I traded for the 2 in the previous episode. And these PCs, I'm not going to lie, these PCs weren't much to work with in terms of aesthetics. Let's put it that way. So it did take me quite a while to get the funds that I was looking for these PCs. So what happened was, the first rig we had this AeroCool case, this StrikeX case, this white build with an i7 and a 1060. We ended up flipping that for $950 Aussie. And now all the prices in today's series, in this whole series, is in Aussie dollars. So one Aussie dollar is weaker than a US dollar. So you can do the conversions, or actually I'll put the conversions up on the screen for you as we go along. But we sold that first PC. That was the first to go, surprisingly. And then the next PC was an RTX 2060 and an i5 9600KF. And I blinged this thing up. I cleaned it up really nicely. And so someone contacted me and they said, Brian, would you be interested in trading 3 of these PCs that I have for your RTX 2060 PC? And I thought about it at first. I was like, yeah, of course, 3 PCs for one? What specs are we exactly looking at here? And then they said we got an i5 7500 and a GTX 1070. That was the first PC, and I'm thinking in the back of my mind, okay, I can flip that pretty easy. Then when I saw the other 2 PCs, because they showed me a photo of the first PC, and I was like, all right, cool. Then I went over there, and the other 2 PCs, they had decent specs, but they were in pretty bad looking cases. I'm not gonna lie. These cases, I was thinking to myself, damn, this is gonna be a pretty tough sell. So I cleaned them up as best as I could, but essentially the second PC was really hard to sell. That was the longest that it took. And I only sold that this morning, hence why I'm recording this next episode right now. So we ended up selling the first PC out of that trade-in bunch for 1,000 Aussie dollars straight away. Someone actually came in, picked it up, they loved the 1070, they liked the look. That was the decent looking rig out of the 3. Then the next one to sell after that was a GTX 960 and an FX 6300. So this was a 6-core old school FX CPU, 8 gigabytes of RAM and a 960. Now, I did have to put an SSD in this thing, which cost me another 29 Aussie dollars. So I do have to subtract that from my balance of this flip price, which I got $500 for, which was really healthy. And so we ended up making 470 on that PC. And then the last PC to sell was a GTX 1060 and an i7 3770. Now the specs were decent, but unironically, this PC was the last to sell in my opinion, because it was aesthetically by far the worst. It didn't even have a side, well actually I had to knock out the side panel on this PC because it was just scratched and scuffed to the point of no return. And so what we did with that PC is we ended up putting a monitor and a keyboard and mouse in the combo. And so that cost me $50, and so I had to subtract that from the sale price of $800, which is what I got for it. So we ended up making $750 on that PC. And honestly, in that time as well, not only did we have these aesthetically unpleasing PCs to sell, it was also really tough because the market, literally from episode 3 onwards, where I'm living locally, the market has just taken a massive, and I mean massive dive in terms of demand. And this is due to another trend that I see going on. And I've got to make a separate video about all this. There needs to be a separate video made because what's going on at the moment is used parts, especially where I'm at the moment, they're overpriced in general. And the new parts are coming in with such good prices now that it's making the appeal of used parts a lot less appealing. And so there's so many more factors like trends that are going through with what customers are looking for and all that other stuff. So I will make a separate video about that. But the reason being that it took me so long to make this episode this time is because the market was just very slow. And I've said this in the past, but you do have to be very patient sometimes. Otherwise, you will end up losing money. But all that aside, let's roll that intro. I wish that I was So carrying on from the previous episode, we had a $145 stash in our sleeve. And of course, we used $29 of that for an SSD, and we also used $35 for a monitor and $15 for a keyboard and mouse. So we've calculated all that now with the profits that we made from the PCs, and we've now got a tally of 3,316 Aussie dollars. And on top of that, we've still got a small SSD, a 60 gigabyte, which I really don't see myself using in this next episode. And we've also got a 450 gigabyte hard drive, which was in the previous episode, we explained what happened to this drive. But the good thing is we've got 3 RGB fans, 140mm Corsair fans, and a controller. And we've also got an additional Cooler Master fan and a RGB controller. So we can sort of play around where I intend to use that Corsair fan kit in this build that I'm tallying up right here. So I'm going to detail what I plan to do now, because we're ready to buy an RTX 3080 PC. We can build one, but I'm not going to stop there, because this is where the market is shifting from. It's going from used into new. And with that, you can make a little bit of profit. And so in order to survive and thrive, we have to initially adapt. And that's what we're doing here, where we've pre-ordered an RTX 3080 for 1,210 Aussie dollars. So we've already secured our pre-order. Apparently it's coming in the next week, which is awesome news and right in time for what we're going to do here. And we've also got a 32 gigabyte kit of DDR4 memory. We've tallied this up for 196 Aussie dollars. We've got a motherboard here, a micro ATX Z490 for 199, a 10700F for 469, a 650 watt power supply. These are the MWEs. I've tested these in the past. Really good power supplies, especially for the dollar. 75 bucks. We've got a case. We're going to go with a little bit of a gamble here. This is a case for 78 bucks, and we're going to be adding our own fans in. This is an Antec RGB case, but I feel like it's got the mesh front there. It can let a bit of air in, and since we've got the 140mm support at the back, I feel like this case could come out pretty well. And then lastly, for the drive, we're going with a 1TB M.2 from Silicon Power for 154 bucks, which is going to leave our tally for this build to $2,381. So we still have a massive reserve pile. We're kind of like the Warren Buffett now of PC gaming. That's what we are. We've got that stash ready to go in case we need it. So we can do some other options along the way. But so basically we have some options here, and when I check around and what the competitors are doing, there's some places that are selling RTX 3080 PCs for about, I think it's 2,900, and they've got 6-core 12-threaded Ryzen 5 3600. So I feel like the 10700F could sell a bit better than these PCs. So we're putting this system together for a really awesome price. And that's the benefit that you're going with now. All of a sudden, new parts are just that good to buy. And all of a sudden, the market's just swinged. Just like that. That's what I said when I decided to purchase the salmon and avocado sushi for the extra $1, as opposed to the chicken and avo sushi for $3.50. So we can afford that extra $1 now.
But Brian, what has salmon and avocado sushi got to do with picking up PC parts?
I'm glad you asked. Well, the salmon feeds your brain the essential fatty oils that it needs to survive. And with that, we've found two 2TB hard drives for $10 each. This is supposedly, they work. So I'm going to go in the car now and check them out. And if we pick them up, then we can even put one of these in the upcoming build. But we've also got now a 2TB for another build. And we also still want to get a cooler. So I will keep my eyes out for a good cooler that we can match with this build, because the Intel 10700F, I think it includes the stock cooler, but when we're going with a 3080 build, and of course the CPU cooler being the center of attention with this build, right above that 3080, I feel like it could use just that little bit, spend that little bit extra to make that bit more. And here we are now on the desk. We've got these two drives right here, $10 skis a pop, and I even tested them before I picked them up. So that was an epic deal. I also got a few more for outside the series as well. So in total, I got 6 of them, but I'm using 2 of these for the series here today. And some other good news is I've also ordered all the other parts in the cart ready for this 3080 PC when that pre-order comes through. So everything is looking like it's going to plan. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a few other deals because we still have some money left over. Like, we still got a good $900 in the kitty to make this happen. So what we're gonna do now is go on good old Gumtree and Facebook and see if we can pull up any deals, just to, even if we can get them for a good price, perhaps we can put together another solid gaming PC in this series. So we've now finished up on Gumtree and Facebook, and we found a few potential deals here. Now, with the leftover money that we have, it was like the previous episode where whoever strikes first with the deals will get the money that I've got, sort of thing. So the leftover deals, if they get back too slow, then I won't be picking up those deals. But what we got here is a potential on a Ryzen 5 3600. They've got bent pins, but they're only asking 100 Aussie dollars for it. And I took a look at the photo and there's no snapped pins. And now I'm willing to take the gamble here because I'm pretty good. I've had a perfect success rate on fixing bent pins on Ryzen. I've gotten really used to it, where a lot of you guys have also sent in your CPUs and I've fixed those as well. One of them was really bad to the point where I didn't think I'd get that thing working, and it did work. So I'm pretty confident going into this that if I got this CPU, I could fix it and get it working. And of course, I offered $80. So I came in with a 20 under what they were asking. And if I get this for $80 and fix it, I know it's a bit of a risk, but you got to take the risks to get ahead. But the next deal is a really interesting one because someone's selling 3 old retro cases, and these things are like 15 years old, I think, but they're still brand new in the box. And I would honestly love nothing more than to just do some content with these cases, because I kind of love some of those old tacky designs that exist, especially if they've got those old, just really bright LEDs, which they seem to do in some of those cases. I kind of miss some of that stuff, believe it or not. And so it's 3 cases and they're asking 50 Aussie dollars. I said I'd take the lot. I'm actually waiting for them to organize a pickup date. They did say that we got a deal, but it's just a matter of when I can actually access and get that deal. The next deal we had after that was an i7 8700, and they're asking 200 Aussie. I put in an offer of 150. So if we manage to snap that up, then that could be the head honcho leading the battlefield in this side project PC. And then the last deal. This is the last but not least. It's the Ryzen 3 3100 build with all decked out RGB. And when I look at it, it's got 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's got 500 watt budget power supply. It's got an RX 550, which would pull out, 120 gigabyte SSD. And what I could do with this, if I get it for 400 Aussie dollars, is I could take that GPU out and put in like a 1660 Super, and also put in this $10 2 terabyte hard drive. And honestly, we'd have a really tight gaming PC for around 700 Aussie, which would be really good value. And so I think I could flip that easy with all that RGB inside the case. So we're waiting to hear back from them. Hopefully they take the offer on that. That side project, that is going to be a lot of fun. And I think when we relate that back to the new build, we've pretty much got no risk on the new side of things. We get the warranty there. So if something is faulty, we can get it replaced for free. That's not going to be a problem. I'm buying these all from local places in Queensland around where I live. So we're going to have no problems there. In terms of the used parts on this side project, we are taking a bit of a gamble, especially if we get the CPU with the bent pins. But I know you guys will want nothing less from Tech Yes when it comes to getting the side project done. So that's going to be a bit of fun. Hope you guys enjoy that between this episode and the next episode, where the next episode is going to be huge. Hopefully I can get 2 PCs done in that next episode, and hopefully that 3080 pre-order comes in at the expected ETA date, which is before the end of this month. So I really can't wait to get this done. And I mean, I'm surprised that we're it feels a bit surreal. We're already here. I mean, from episode 1, we got the deals, and that's what it's all about. It's about paying the right prices, being at the right place at the right time, and we've definitely made some good decisions so far. Now, the market itself is really crazy. From when I started this series, I did not intend for 2020 to go down the way it did. I don't think anyone did. And so it's just a matter of me just literally just wheezing my way through this whole ordeal and trying to make magic happen, where especially in the last month, it has been a really tough market. It's been hard to sell PCs. That's why this episode has come so slowly, because I found it so hard to move anything for that matter. And really, you've got to start competing very hard in this market right now, because I feel like it's more of a buyer's market for PCs, especially when you look at the prices of new parts. They have come down a truckload. New PCs, building them right now is really cheap, especially on the low end, mid-range, and even sort of like the mid-high range. If you're on the high range, I know a lot of people are waiting out for the RTX 3080 builds, and they will come in time, but in the meantime, building new PCs under $1,000, for example, it's a really good time, in my opinion, where you can get some really good deals, at least on everything but, say, an RTX 3070 or a 3080, because they're going to have some supply problems. But other than that, I will say one more thing. If you move with the market and you get in that sort of high turnover sort of flow, then you will be doing a lot better. Because remember this, if it's a buyer's market, then that means if you're a seller, for example, you're going to be able to buy parts cheap too. It usually correlates well within the times and the markets that you're in. And say, for instance, a seller's market, then parts are going to be expensive. And so it all balances out one another. And right now what you're seeing is the new parts are definitely balancing out all those overpriced used parts that were up for sale. So a lot of people now are just going to be buying new parts, even if they're PC builders and flippers, because a lot of these stores charge $150 to $200 just to build a PC. That's not even install Windows, at least where I am locally. And so a lot of guys are doing this and offering that service pretty much, but they're also tuning the PCs up, maybe even delivering them and customizing them and helping the people out more. So you've got this competition now coming in from the new market, which I welcome it, because I feel like, and we're going to talk about this in that separate video, but I feel like the used market is becoming something a little bit different, especially towards the later half of this year. It's becoming definitely, so I've noticed some crazy trends as well. So the new market at this point in time is definitely keeping the used market in check. It's just we're all holding out for that sort of entry mid-range graphics card to keep the used GPU market in check, which that is still out of control. That's the one thing that really needs to be fixed. But in the end, the used and the new market, they just share this forever love-hate relationship where they balance each other out. And what comes out of it is just nothing but beauty. Anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, then be sure to hit that like button. Also, I'll put the tally up on the screen, what we've got so far. And now I know there's going to be a few people, because this relates to the question of the day perfectly. They just asked in the Xeon video, Harold Simmons asked, why get that if you can get a Ryzen? And this is in relation to the 1680 V2 Xeon. This CPU is definitely more of an exotic CPU. I don't recommend people go out and get this for price performance. It's not one of those CPUs. And in fact, Ryzen, even the 3100, it's such a hard CPU to beat. It's an amazing CPU, 4 cores, 8 threads. The latest Zen 2 will soon to be surpassed by Zen 3, but I feel like this CPU is going to be relevant for a few more months at least, until maybe AMD releases a Ryzen 3 5100 or some CPU similar to that. But as it stands, these 4 cores, 8 threads, they are really bringing the competition to the market, to the point where I think used CPUs in general are pretty overpriced right now. And I didn't think it would come to this, but this is what I'm seeing. The new market, the Ryzen 3 3100, is just bringing really good value for money, and it's bringing really good just usability in that you can get a A320, low powered, low budget board, slap it on there, 3200 megahertz memory, slap it on there, and you've got yourself a really good price performance gaming PC that honestly, the used market, even used first gen Ryzen stuff, is going to find it hard to compete with, especially for gaming, because you're gonna have to get a better motherboard for that 8 core. Generally, you're gonna have to get a better motherboard for even the Ryzen 5 2600 and a better cooler perhaps, which the Ryzen 3 3100, that includes a cooler. And then you've got not only that, the fact that those CPUs are used and they burn more power too, compared to this little new beauty. And of course, if you've got the needs for more cores, more threads, maybe you're video editing or you're doing something that needs those more cores, more threads, then some of those used options can be great. And you've also got the 2678 V3, but those Xeons and those used Ryzen CPUs at the moment, they really, just for raw gaming performance, especially with mid-range graphics cards right now, like a 1660 Super or a 5700 XT, they're kind of finding it really hard, I think, to compete with the 3100's value proposition. And that's what it's about for me. At the end of the day, it's about getting the raw price performance for the dollar. And the new market is definitely bringing it so hard. And to answer that question directly, Harold Simmons, the 1680 V2 for price performance, yeah, I would get a Ryzen over that too right now for the 3100, for example. Unless, of course, like I said in that video, you got the X79 motherboard for really cheap, and you also got maybe perhaps some other components in a build, like a power supply and some DDR3 memory all mixed in, then you could really make something happen, which I have come into this year quite a few times. So that's just that. The used market is what it is. I don't really sort of make heavy recommendations for used parts unless they are readily available nowadays. I'll just show you guys what I get in the deals. Other than that, if I'm making heavy recommendations on used products, I want to make sure there's at least a bit of stock. Hope that answers that question. It was a little bit more in depth this time around with the question of the day, but hope you guys enjoy it. Stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.